This is part 5 and the final part of our coat sewing series. In part 1 to 4, I used a cola colored fabric, but we're continuing with this navy blue fabric. The content is the same, so please don't be confused. I'll put the links to part 1 to 4 in the description box. Do well to watch from the beginning to appreciate this tutorial better. It is easy to do and beginner friendly. If this is something you'd love to learn, do stick and stay and let's do it together. We're going to join this very side panel to the front panel. Then we'll also join the back panel to the side panel. And so first we'll go and stitch our center back. Then we'll stitch our side panel to the very side of the front panel. Good size together. And so it's going to be like this. We'll go ahead and stitch this. This excess could be cut off. We have joined the center back of our lining, but the other thing we did was that we placed a zipper here, and this zipper is to help us open and close so that we're able to work inside our suit. It's not compulsory, you can just seal it all up. We've joined the side panel to the front panel of our lining, and so this is what we have. And so we're going to join the side panel also to the back. We're going to join it and then we'll have it this way. How do we do it? We're going to place this here, making sure that the half that we have added, that was when we're cutting this very vent in our lining. We said we're supposed to come down here by half of an inch, and so we place the half. We'll mark half inch from this very point downwards. And then we'll match this to that very point. What we'll do is that we'll stitch all the way to about quarter away from this very point, and so we are stitching to this side. It should surpass from here to this very point is half. We want middle of this half, meaning we are doing a quarter of an inch, and so that's where our stitching will end. And then from this part towards this side too, we have quarter, and so we're going to get the stitches all the way to this side. When we do, we'll take this away and then we'll create a notch. That is, we cut this through till it gets to where the stitching got to. Then we will flip this to this direction and then we'll stitch. It's quite easy. So let's go and do the stitching. And so this is what we have. The opening will be here. We won't close this. And this is what we have as a joining. We'll go and repeat same for the other side. And then we'll have the whole of our lining fully sewn. So we join the shoulders. Then repeat same for this side. This is our sleeves lining. What we did is that when we had the vent in the suit itself, we've cut the vent sides off. That's how come we have them straight like this. And so what you're going to do is that we first stitch the back. And so this would be the back and that part would be the front. And so we'd first stitch the back like this. That's good size together. We're going to stitch this all the way to the tip here. When it comes to the front, we'll rather stitch about 4 inches. We're going to stitch just about 4 or 3 inches to this very side. The rest we won't stitch. To insert our sleeve, what you're going to do is that we locate the top of our shoulder, that is the apex, and then also the bottommost part of our armhole, these two. But then we would shift it forward by about 1 inch and use that as our center. And so instead of using this as our center where the stitches was, instead of using that as our center, we rather come inward by 1 inch and then use that rather as our center, and then we shift this way, and this also becomes the mid portion of the bottom of our armhole. We do same for the other sleeve. Then we're going to match this very notch to the bottom part, and then the other notch on top here also to where we created our new notch. When it comes to coat sleeves and then armhole, when we are dealing with the lining, the sleeve is always longer than that of the armhole, and so we would have to, juxtapose them so that by the time you are done, the sleeve is able to fix into the armhole perfectly well. When it goes to the fashion fabric itself or the self of the suit, we would know how to deal with the sleeve. But then when it comes to the lining, we don't really gather, and do any adjustments. But then you just match this, that is the bottom, the top, and then when it comes to stitching, you just know how to adjust it so that it fits in perfectly well. So we are going ahead to stitch this, and repeat same for the other side as well. For the suit itself, you go ahead and stitch the center back. Then we'll stitch the side and the front to the back panel, like this. And so we're going to stitch this, and then we stitch the center back, and we'd also stitch the other side. Now when it comes to the back, this very vent you see here, we'll measure the distance from here to the tip. That's the vent width. We are getting 2 1/4, and so we measure 2 1/4 down here, and then we flip the whole thing over like this. And so we're going to have this and that. Then repeat same for this other side. Next is to place our canvas onto the shoulder area. This supports it to give it structure so that the shoulder doesn't fold inward when the person wears it. You can use this canvas, which has wording at one side and then the canvas on the other side, and this is quite heavy. You can cut this into the shape. There's also this already made canvas that is made as chest pad, and this is it. It comes in different sizes. We have the small size, we have the big size. The good thing about this very one, which makes me like using it, is the fact that this whole white thing you see here is an adhesive, and so we place it here, right along this line, and then the excess we would have here, we'll go and trim them. And so we'll go and do that and then come and place it back onto it. Next, we are going to join the shoulders. So this is the front and that is the back. We do away with the canvas and then we stitch that first. And we'll repeat same for the other side. Next, we're going to pick this and then we'll stitch the excess we had here. That is the seam allowance. This very one, not the other one. We are stitching this to our canvas. So we're going to stitch it like this. Then repeat same for the other side. For the sleeve, we peel off one layer of the shoulder pad, then we place on, just as you see me doing. We flip this over and then trim off the excess. Now, we run loose stitches on the edge. We go to the shoulder and then we mark 1 inch away from the shoulder line and we create a notch. We hold that tip, straighten it up, and then the bottommost part of our armhole we create a notch as well, just as we did for the lining. Repeat same for the other side. Now we pull this off together just a little bit, so that the sleeve fits the armhole perfectly well. And so you gather just a little and you pull off most of the gathering, to accommodate it at the apex of our shoulder, as you see, like this. Now we're measuring the front, that is from where we created the notch to this very side. We write it down, then we repeat same for the other side, so that we know the length of the back and the length of the front sleeve. We'll go and measure the same thing on the suit, that is the armhole. And if the two matches, then we'll go ahead and then insert our sleeve, matching the bottom notch to that of the suit, and then the top notch that we also created, we also match it with the top notch on the suit. So we just adjust it like this till it's accommodated in the armhole. Then we go ahead and stitch this. I usually prefer to stitch 1/4 of an inch, and that is exactly what I'm doing right now. Whichever seam allowance you had added, you would stitch that away so that you have the exact measurement. Unfortunately, I lost the video to the sleeve stitching and I'm already done with it. And so what we did was that we placed the two, that is the top part of our sleeve and then the inner part of our sleeve. We placed them this way. Then we stitched the vent head all along the sleeve, that is the back. After stitching this, then we opened the seams like this and then pressed. That is this very side. We opened the seams and pressed. And then we flipped the vent towards the back side. That is the outer part of our sleeve. We flipped the whole vent towards this direction. Measuring it from here to this very part was about 2 1/4. Was about 2 inches. And so we flipped the same thing on this very side. How did we create this? We created it by folding this that way. That is after we have stitched this. Then we flipped our hem allowance on like this. Then we create a notch here. Flip the whole thing to the good side like this. And then we stitch from where we created the notch all the way to this corner. It is the same method we use in stitching the back vent. And so you can watch the back vent, how we did that, and then it will become easier for you to do this too. So that's exactly what we did to get this vent. And then for this, we just flipped our hem allowance backwards like this and stitched. Then we turned it back like that. And that is how come we also got this. Now, we'll just place them good size together like this. And then we'll go and stitch 1/4 of an inch from this side because that's the allowance I added. And then at this very point, we stitch 3/4. And that's also the allowance we have. There are several methods by which you can get the collar accurate. I prefer to use this where you trace the neckline as you folded the suit into two. You mark about 1 3/4 and then you project it upwards by 1 3/4. At the center back, you come upwards by about 2 1/2. Then you connect. Then you add 1/2 inch allowance on the base. As you see me sketch, the sketch is quite faint, but then that's the intention. And then we add it to this side too. I'm just deepening the center back neckline, and then we also add 1/2 to the front. Now we'll go ahead and cut this out. Right, when we fold this, it goes inward a bit until we need to slant this part by about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. Then, and so that's what we want. Then we place it onto another fabric, but then we're making sure it's on bias. We've added our seam allowance at the center back, and that's how come you see the little space there. Then we go ahead and cut this. I first used a canvas to cut, and so that's what you see on. So we'll go and stitch the center back where I've marked, and then we'll slit it into two like this. We open it and then press the seam opened. We place this back on. We cut the same thing with another fabric. Right, now we're going ahead to stitch the canvas, the fashion fabric, and its lining all together. As we stitch, it's appropriate to place this hem stiff on, After that, we create notches. The hem tape is to make sure that when we iron or we press, it will stay. After doing this under stitching, we flip it again and then finish the edges. These are quite simple stuff to do. I've placed the hem tape or the hem stiff at this point too. After this, you reduce the seam bulk on the corners, then you turn it good side out with the help of a point turner. We make sure that we press it so that at the good side the lining wouldn't show, and that was the reason why we inserted the hem tape when we were stitching. Then we trim off the excesses. Right, now we are placing the shoulder pad onto our shoulders. We're marking 4.5 inches, and the 4.5 inches will lie on the shoulder point where we had created our notch initially. That is where the 4.5 mark is starting from, and then it goes towards the back. And so the 4.5 starts from that shoulder point where we created the notch towards the back. Then the rest comes towards the front. After that, we'll go ahead and stitch it, and then we're doing this permanent stitches with a hem needle. And so you can do just about 3 hems just to secure it in place. Right. So repeat same for the other side too. Now we'll come and then create a notch in the corner. That is for our back vent. Then we flip it all to the good sides together, matching the notch, and then we're going to stitch from there all the way to the corner where I've held. Repeat same for the other side as well. And so this is the side that we're going to stitch where I've marked right now. For the collar, we match the center back of our collar to that of our suit to this side where the lapel breaks. We're going to repeat same for the other side. Then we stitch. When we stitch to this side, we make sure that it's surpasses it by about 1/4 inch so that we can create a notch down here. We can snip through and then turn the collar and stitch till we exhaust the whole thing, just like this. We do same for the other side. There are several methods when it comes to this color. I find this to be the easiest, especially for beginners. This is our lining. We're also going to create the notch at this very corner as we are done for the fashion fabric right now. We notch this and we notch the other corner as well. Right now we're going to match our fashion fabric and the lining. That is the center front seam. That is the front seam actually. And so this is how we do it. When it gets to the base here, watch carefully. We'll match this side seam of the lining to that of the fashion fabric, and then you see this slant. That is where we're going to stitch. Then we'll come and get our curve at the front all the way to the lapel at the top. Then we'll continue stitching the hem allowance to the lining, just like this, all the way to the top. And repeat same for the other side as well. After that, we create notches, especially around the curvy areas of our garment. We're trimming off the excess. And now we also want to finish the neckline with the lining. And so we're matching the center back of our lining to that of the fashion fabric. The corner where we had mated right now, we also match that to our corner, and then basically we're going to stitch the whole neckline. In case you find this tutorial to be useful, please don't forget to subscribe. I'd be glad to read your comments and your questions. Just keep them coming. We're stitching the neckline, just as you see. Right. So we create notches before we turn it to the good side. Now when it comes to the sleeve, this is how we finish it up. We turn the lining, we match the shoulder to that of the fashion fabric, as you see. We match them exactly. And this was the reason why at the front part of our sleeve lining, we sewed just about 4 inches. It is to create space for something like this. You make sure you match it exactly the same. It's not difficult, but then it may look quite bulky. You just have to work your way around it, and then it will be fine. So we're going ahead to stitch this, and then after we are done stitching, this is how neat it looks. When it comes to the edge or the tip, we turn it to the wrong side, and then we'd also go ahead and stitch about 4 inches. After doing that, now we have to match the seams like this and bring it to the good side through the opening in the lining. And so we're also going to align this very seam with that of the lining. Now we're going to stitch to finish the sleeve. It's also appropriate, very appropriate, to insert a hem tape or hem stiff, as some would call it, with this very stitch, but then make sure it doesn't surpass the seam allowance to where the lining is, so that when you are done and then you want to press it, the lining won't get stuck with the fashion fabric. No. And so you insert the hem tape right inside, as you see. Yes, so it wouldn't have to surpass the lining. We turn it to the good side, and then we finish the opening. We just take the seam allowance inside and do a top stitch, but then you stitch right on the tip. Now we're left with the back vent. So this is where the zipper comes in handy. We turn the whole thing to the good side using that space, and then we flip our hem allowance backwards like this, pin. Then we match where this very stitch met. We match the two. You'd see that there is some excess with the lining. We push it in like this, and then we'll go ahead to fasten it with our pins or our fabric clip. We are also applying the hem tape method here. It is just to hold it down when you press. Conventionally, we wouldn't do this because we would have to hem everything inside after we are done. This is just to make it a bit easier for us. This is how we match this part of our lining. We are taking it to the wrong side to stitch, and then we open it. Then we place it like this, and so the lining should also match the hem. After we fasten it like this, we'll go ahead and stitch all the way through to this very side. I'm starting from the midsection, working it out to one side, then we'll go and stitch the other side also to the farther end. Right. So when we turn it to the good side, this is what we see. Repeating for the other side as well. Now we have the opening at the back only, so we fish that one also out through the space the zipper gave us, and it would also go and then stitch this. After that, we give our suit a good press, and voila, we're good to go. Very, very easy and neat. So this is it. we are done with our suit. Thank you so much for watching and for staying tuned till this time.